Another race and another opportunity went begging for the British driver Lando Norris. Since the improvement of McLaren in late 2024, everyone believed that Lando had an actual chance to compete with the likes of Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. Sure, he did, only to make a crucial mistake that wiped out his title dreams. Then, more mistakes followed starting in 2025, allowing Oscar to sit with 2, possibly 3 wins by the time you watch this video. It's becoming more and more clear that McLaren should have focused more on Oscar from the start. Let's find out why. Oscar versus Lando. Both Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris are incredible drivers. They tend to remain cool, calm and collected, and outside the car, well, both of them are just fun guys. Yes, Oscar and Lando just love to have some fun. Fan favourites, as you might call them, a little bit of rivalry is slowly building in the Woking-based team, and this could easily become another Lewis Hamilton vs Nico Rosberg situation, but we'll explain that in a bit. Since joining that papaya side, both drivers have now competed in exactly 50 Grand Prix races. It might be 51 by the time you watch this video, but for the purposes of comparison, we'll stick with 50 each. Of course, Lando leads the current head-to-head 32-14 in Grand Prix, also accounting for races where drivers didn't make it to the end. In terms of points, Lando also leads with 649 points over 462. Finally, Lando has finished above Oscar in the championship as well, meaning that the Brit is certainly better than Oscar on paper. But that's the problem. Races are not won on paper. They need a racetrack with all its variables. This is where Lando Norris seems to fail. Whenever he needs to perform under pressure, the British driver simply cannot reach the full potential of his McLaren. It was evident in 2024 and seems to be happening again in 2025. Lando Norris simply cannot reach his car's full potential, and this seems to be a major problem. On the other hand, Oscar's performances at China and Bahrain prove just how good of a driver the Australian is. Compared to 2023 and 2024, when Oscar often ran out of tyres, he's now in prime position to understand his car and to manage a race. But the biggest difference is when the pressure is on. Oscar Piastri can still pull out a pole position lap, and this is currently making the biggest difference, especially in a year where dirty air has become a big issue. To many, Lando is the better driver, and his performances suggest that should he reach his true potential, the ceiling for Lando might just be a little higher than Oscar, but it's not showing at the moment. So why should McLaren rather focus on Oscar? The flexi-wing ban. Judging by the demeanour of Red Bull, particularly Max Verstappen and Christian Horner, the biggest part of McLaren's benefit is their flexible rear wing. The wing enables the McLaren to run higher levels of downforce, which naturally leads to better corner grip and the protection of the tyres. On top of this is the fact that when the car hits the straights, the wing can comfortably bend, reducing drag. It's the same thing everyone accused the Red Bull of in 2022. However, the FIA is introducing new regulations to combat this at the Round 9 Spanish Grand Prix, which means that McLaren could see its advantage slowly wiped out. Judging by the current pace of the Mercedes and even Ferrari, it could bring 3 teams on level footing midway through the season. This could possibly turn into 4 teams depending on how effective Red Bull's upgrades at Imola are. For Lando, well, it means that he'll not have the same kind of advantage the McLaren currently enjoys, putting a lot of pressure on him as a driver. Moreover, the Mercedes and Ferrari are looking quick, and with more upgrades expected in the next few rounds, there's no denying the fact that these 2 teams are on the verge of catching up to McLaren. The question now is whether Lando can survive racing on equal footing. Why Lando will likely choke. Judging by the history of the British driver and the nice guy mentality Lando swears by, there is no clear sign that the Brit has what it takes to become the champion. Historic drivers like Ayrton Senna, Michael Schumacher and even Lewis Hamilton didn't win the championship being nice guys. Even the 2021 feud between Lewis and Max turned ugly when the 2 drivers collided not once but twice. One of these crashes took out both, while the other led to Max losing the British Grand Prix. When you have many guys fighting for the title, there's no denying that things will get hot and tempers are bound to flare. In a recent interview, Lando had the following to say: "I feel like there's a very prescribed version of how people say a world champion needs to be, overly aggressive. I want to win a championship, but I'd rather just be a good person and try to do well. I'll do whatever I can to win a championship, but maybe I won't sacrifice in my life as much as some others in terms of who I am as a person and have the FU mentality people say you've got to have. I still believe I can be a world champion, but doing it by being a nice guy." These are words never before spoken by any world champion. Yes, Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton ultimately transformed into the beloved guys we see today, but that is certainly not the norm, and you rarely ever see such a mentality from a possible world champion. On the other hand, Oscar is a more traditional racer who wants to win and doesn't care too much whether people like him or not. The Aussie rarely complains and just does the driving, something seen by many world champions. So why should McLaren focus on Oscar instead? McLaren shifting focus to Lando. As of right now, the championship is on a knife edge, with numerous drivers all in contention for a possible win by the time we reach Abu Dhabi. However, the closer it becomes, the more pressure will build, shifting the advantage to Oscar. Since the Australian is yet to turn 25, he is still one of the youngest drivers on the grid. This puts him on par with Max Verstappen when the Dutchman managed to win his first world championship in 2021. Oscar should easily grow into the role, and with the current McLaren he is driving, it's undeniable that Oscar will continue growing from strength to strength. However, Lando might just see this video and choose to improve a little bit, which will certainly heat up the rest of the year. But why can't they just let both drivers race, you might ask? Well, the competition is slowly catching up to the McLarens, and soon they'll not have the benefit of the fastest car. Adding the dirty air effect to the equation means that should another car qualify ahead of the McLaren, it'll be extremely hard to overtake. This is where teamwork comes in. A quick look at Mercedes and Lewis shows exactly how often Bottas was sacrificed in a bid to help Lewis. This doesn't even begin to mention how Perez was sacrificed to help Max to his first title. It's just a matter of fact that when you have a close title race, one driver often needs to bite the bullet in order to help the other. Yes, you can let them race, but this is not always conducive, and drivers can lose a lot of time when it comes to battling. But how will Lando react to this?
Holding F1 so far. No, keep going now.
I can't, it's broken! It's broken! Anti-stall! It's off.
Let's be fair, Lando is the McLaren chosen one, and he's also a British driver. This means that he'll have a lot more support, and fans will not want to see him being sacrificed as the second driver. You can be sure that the Woking factory will have a possible riot on their hands if they announce Oscar as the number one driver. However, it might be needed if McLaren doesn't want to bottle yet another season. So, how do you feel about this situation, and is it really fair for McLaren to shift focus from Lando to Oscar? Should they allow the two to simply race and see who wins? Make sure to let us know in the comments below, and please double check that you are subscribed to our channel for all your latest F1 news.